All right. Um, in last few classes, we read about the database architecture. What is the instance? What are the different memory components in it? What are the different background processes running in it? And how the connections happen and how the processing happens internal to database. So outside of the instance, we have something called as a storage, where which is also not called as database, in which we have data files, control files, online redo log files, archive log files if archival is enabled, and flashback logs if flashback is enabled, right? So when we say data files, what exactly is data file? We always use a file with some name with the extension .dbf. So how does data get stored in the at the database level? That is that takes us to this next chapter in database concept, which is basically helps us to understand what are the different kinds of objects which are there in a database. So how does the data get stored in the database? We know that data, we can dump some data in the database. Application does that, application developers do that. But how exactly it goes and sits inside the database is what we'll be seeing today. So first of all, in a database, we have a database user. So whoever needs access to a database, they have to use their own user to log in. They cannot use one user to. I mean, many people cannot use one user ID to log into the database. So when I say log into the database, the SQL plus which you do right here, SQL plus slash assist DBA video. Here, basically, when we give slash, it basically goes in as a super user. That is how DBAs connect. So there are different. There is another way to connect to this database. So SQL plus sys slash password of the sys user as sysdba. So here, this is another way of connecting to the database, where we are telling uh, that use the SQL plus a binary. When I say binary, it's basically a small piece of software which is used to run a code which will connect us to database using SQL plus. Right? Use this binary with username as sys and password as oracle12, and connect with the sysdba privilege. Since I'm still a DBA, so I get the sysdba privilege. So sysdba means it's a super privilege, so you can even drop the database using that privilege. So so right now I have connected as sys user and oracle user. So once you are connected to the database, you can quickly check with which user you have connected. Sometimes you might have multiple users which you might be using. Say, as a DBA, you might be using sys user for doing some maintenance work, and there might be another user which is created, which you can use for do other kind of works. So most of the companies don't have that kind of setup, but I'm giving you, giving you an example that this kind of setup may exist. So when I do show user, it will show me with what user I have connected. So here explicitly I gave this username slash password. Okay. So if I don't give that username slash password, I say SQL plus slash has sysdba. Okay. And say I do show user. So here again, it shows the user has sys. So when a DBA logs in by either slash as sysdba or explicitly give that sys username slash password, it will take you to the sys user. Sys user is a super user for at the database level. Now, how did this let us log in without we giving the user ID and password? So what happens in the back end is there is a file which is called as a password file, in which once the database is created, the sys user password is stored in that one. Okay, when you give SQL plus slash as sysdba, it is going to go and check if the user at the OS level, here it's Oracle. right? So don't get confused with when I say user at OS level. We'll come to that. So user at Oracle has that privilege to log in as sys or not. If this user has that privilege, then it lets me log in, right?
So
So
then
what?
only DBA person can have this sys user ID, right? Not the others who is connected to that.
Correct.
Like other members in a company, they don't have it, right?
No, they don't have it. Yeah, a developer might have access to the database, but developers access is just for deploying the codes, developing new code for the company. But he
Okay.
cannot log in with the sysdba privilege, which has basically control to even drop the database, the maximum which we can do. Right, dropping the database means all data is gone, wiped out, everything cleaned up.
Yeah. And one more small question, like when you said like how the data is stored in a database or how it goes.
Mhm.
So while we are learning, I'm little confused here. So when we learning this machine language, then we came to know that it will go like zeros and ones in binary format, right? So
Correct. Yeah.
I hope so that thing, like we are not as a DBA, it's nothing to do with that, right? It will convert by itself. It will show by itself. You don't worry on that part, right?
Yes, we don't worry on that part. Yes. So when it goes to that level of zeros and ones to check if the zeros and ones are correct, we as a DBA do not need to possess that kind of skills. We can reach out to Oracle support, and they have engineers who are able to even make sense out of that zeros and ones.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So that's the Oracle's headache. So no need to worry on those.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I have said this earlier. Two kind of users: OS user, operating system level, and second user is your database level user. Your sys, which I log in, this is database level user, and Oracle, which shows here, this is my OS level user. Okay. So how many users I have at OS level? If I go to slash home and do ls, here I have only Oracle user. But when in a company-wide setup, one server might have access to multiple users. One will surely be DBAs. If you have a team of 10 DBAs, you will see all their user IDs here. Probably if I am the DBA working over there and they have created my account as Dev, then you will see a user called as Dev. Right. So similarly, you will see multiple user accounts along with DBA accounts. You will have users who need access to this server. So who are they? They might be the storage admins. They might be the system administrators who take care of the server. At the server level, if anything happens, then they come in picture. But at database level, if anything happens, then we come in picture. Right. So something happened to the database because of the issue at the server level. We just try to find out what exactly happened, why the database shut down without any commands being run. And if you figure out that there was something happened at the operating system level, our work is just send an email to the operating system team, tell them this is what I see, and can you check what exactly happened to the server. So once they come back, that would be the root cause for the issue which you would have faced. Okay, two users: database level user, OS level user. In Windows term, in Windows level, if I want to tell you, uh, at the operating system level will be the user which you log in when once you turn on your laptop. That user would be at the operating system level. After turning on laptop, say if you want to log into Zoom, then if it asks for a user ID password, I think Zoom asks for user ID password. So that would be the application level user ID. If we relate Zoom has database, then this would be the database which you are connecting with the database user, right? Just a relation that Zoom might be our database, and once I get into the server, I need to connect to the database. So like Zoom prompts for user ID password, same way database needs to get a user ID password. Why we need user ID password? Again, so that the data is secure. Nobody outside of the company who somehow got into the server, access to the server, uh, they don't get access to database also on the fly. Okay. All right. Okay. So every database needs a, every user needs a user account in the database to log in. Without that, they cannot log into the database. So that is a database user. Okay. And there are few privileges which needs to be applied. Again, that is not our headache. When database gets created and okay, sorry. That's user at database level is our headache. We create the user with specific privileges which will let them log into that database. How do we create that user? What privileges should be given? We will see in later chapters when we do the user management. So for now, just remember that every database needs to have a user. Now, once you have a user, if a user creates some data in the database, where should that data go? Right? It cannot just put that data somewhere over on the operating system level or the database level. So what Oracle came up with is a concept called as a schema. What is a schema? Schema is nothing like a container where the schema name will be same as that of the name of the user, a database user. Let me be specific. So if I have a database where we have users like HR, finance, production, research and development services, then similarly when the user is created, automatically a schema is created in the backend. Means it's a empty box created where all the objects which is created for database that goes into the box. What are the objects created? We'll see that in few minutes. But when a user is created, a schema is created. Few people who don't have much knowledge of how database work, they kind of try to mince these words where they say, can you connect to the user? Instead of telling user, they will say, can you connect to the schema? But as a DBA, schema is just a box to store all the information. Then you have to just apply your intelligence and just connect with that user ID which they are giving, and ask them what next to be done on that one. All right. So database has users and schemas. Schemas is a box where you'll create all the objects. Okay. What are objects? The some of the objects which we have are like tables and indexes. To be very precise, uh, top level two objects which for sure will exist in any database would be tables and indexes. There are a few more objects which we will see as we go further, but every database will have a table. So what is a table? Simple as a Excel sheet, rows and columns, which we saw in our first class. So if I consider, if I say I want a table of 24 columns and 24 rows, this would be my table. This yellow part would be my table. As simple as that, right? So depending how do we create the table, we'll see that. But generally, a DBA will not sit and write how to create a table. Okay, that code will come from the application team developers when they have a requirement to create a specific table. Okay, so schema, we saw about it, and like I said, every user has a schema in it. Similarly, sys is one of the user in database, which we saw how do we connect with sys user. Similarly, we have another user which is called as a system user. Okay, again, this one is also a super user. Sys and system. Sys is the topmost, next is system. Why they came up with two different users, we will check on that one when we reach the table space management chapter. For now, two super users, sys and system.
The schema and table both act like container. What is the major difference? I'm not getting it. Table also is like a kind of container which stores the data.
Tables are specific. Say, if you want to store employee information of your company, then you create a table called employee. If you want to store all the vendors which provide you services for your company, you'll create a vendor table. All these tables, if created by a HR user, then it goes into HR schema. right? If the table were created by finance users, then it goes into finance schema. All right. So schema is again not a physical box, just that at a logical level, Oracle said it would be a confusion if I have multiple tables in one big box. Okay.
So
So
basically, similar kind of data, similar kind of tables in one schema. That's what it is.
Uh, not similar kind. You can create any kind of any table in any schema. You can have say, okay, let me give you this example, right? So you can have say if this is our table. Uh, Sorry, let's not confuse here. Okay, so say this is my schema. Say schema one and schema two. Okay, so schema one can have tables like employee and orders, etc. And schema 2 can also have a same table with same name employee. Probably this employee table just stores the employee's first name and last name so that it can kind of correlate with the orders which have been fulfilled by the employees. And this might have same employee information, but it might be kind of relating it to receivables on in the company, right? So one schema, there is no like one. Okay, to answer your question, we can say like a finance schema can have all the tables which are related to finance department. Um, uh, Research and development schema can have all the tables related to research and development. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay. When you said same kind of table, I kind of got distracted with the type of tables, right? Okay. So since system, okay, what is a table? It is as simple as a Excel sheet. Just to remember, it will have many number of rows and many number of columns. The number of columns you will specifically mention when you are creating the table, but the number of rows keeps on increasing as and when you uh, input the data, right? So there are two types of table. One is permanent table, second one is temporary table. Permanent table will store the data which which should not be changed on the fly, or say for example employee information. How frequent will you change the table which has all the employee information? Probably when employee request for change of address, change of phone number, or probably employee got married and they want to change their last name. That is when you'll go and change. So those might be the permanent tables. Temporary tables are some tables which are created on the fly. For example, if a developer wants to gather data from two, okay, so this is schema, right? I'll just put here table one, table two. Okay, so say the developer wants to pull up some data where he wants to get the list of employees from table 1 and also check like which employee completed how many orders in the past month. So he has to pull out, say we have let me delete this for now. Say we have 10,000 employees in our company, and the number of orders in that orders table is 100,000. Okay, so when when a developer needs to pull up that report, like which employee did how many orders in that past month, what he has to write a query in a way that the query pulls up employee number one from the employee table, goes to orders tables, check that 100,000 rows of orders, and determine which all orders that one particular employee one did, right? So that one would be one set of data. So probably the query ran and it pulled up data like employee one did 10 orders in month of January. Okay, that query was able to pull out the data. Now again, it has to pull out for employee too. Say he did 20 and January. Okay, month of January. So this one keeps on happening. Now, while doing this one, first part is easy. Just go and read the table, which has 10,000 rows. Take first employee, and then taking the first employee is the first part of the total objective. Now, after that comes to go and check the second table and try to compare a condition where say if orders tables has columns like employee ID, order number, and month. Okay, so employee ID 001 had an order number of 80,000. That was order number, and it then did in the month of January. So getting this data from a huge table of 100,000 rows will need some uh, inner analysis to be done. It has to pull up all the data, verify each and every row, and do multiple things. So to pull up all the data, where will it save that information temporarily? So that is when automatically internally, depending on how the query is being run, it will database will create a temporary table for our computation purpose. So for temporary table is a table which is created just for your temporary calculations to complete, to get the to hand over the results of the query. Clear? Okay. So next after that one is syntax of how to create a table, right? So this is one way of creating a employee table. Create table employees. Okay. Create whatever is in uppercase over here. Those words will not change when you are creating a table. Okay. And lowercase is something which can change. So create table employees. So I'm giving this table name as employees, in which I'm telling that it should have a column called as employee ID, a column called as first name, column called as last name, email, phone number, hire date, job ID, salary, commission, all those information, which will help anybody to understand what that employee is doing and when they joined and what is their name, details, etc. So this is a simple way of creating a table. Now, what are these beside the column names? It says number, varchar, constraint. What are all this? So this is basically defining what that column will store, whether it will store a number or it will store a character, or it might be a character or a special character, or a number or something else, right? So why we need okay, so this particular part kind of defines what that column will store. Now again, this is not our headache, DBA's headache, but it's good to know that how the developer, what the developer is trying to do. If the developer gives you a script and some error shows up and it says first name cannot be a number because it is you are trying to store uh, some characters, but it is defined as number. So when you see that, you can go and tell the developer that you did a mistake. Instead of this one, you need to put this one. So developers might like that. Okay, DBA is has some knowledge about what we are doing. Again, not necessary. It's your call to whether you want to go that extra mile or not. So basically this one would give us the type of data which is stored in that particular column. Okay. So varchar means it's called as a variable character. Depending on the type of data type you mention, you can store so many amount of characters in it, right? So email is also varchar, like because email will have at the rate symbol. Why first name last name is varchar? There are few countries where the name of people ends up having a special character like an exclamatory mark, right? So few mostly I think uh, African names, they have a exclamatory mark, few of them in their name. I don't know how that pronounces, but they have those special characters. Or else, say, if a country has a specific language they follow, for example, China, where everything is in Chinese language, then you can still define it as varchar, but it will store those special characters. Their characters look different, right? So it might end up storing that value also. So what are the different types, this data types, which we see here, number, varchar, what are the different types of data types? We have short integer, where you can store values from minus 35,000 to plus 32,000 of uh, bytes of data. So this is like how many values, how many numbers can you store. It's like 32,000 plus 35,000, 70, around 60, 65,000 of numbers you can store. So depending on how much big that information might be, you might choose one of the data type. Again, it's not your responsibility, it's just for your knowledge, like what all kind of data types are there. So this link, I will share you this PPT, right? So you can go to this link, and this link basically has uh, some random random uh, code which will help you to create some data in your database. So here this will help you to create a table, then create a index, then after creating an index, say after you create a table, say you created a table called region, you put region id and some constraint and region name, and later on some other requirement came and they say like we need to add one more column to the table, uh, and can you do that one? Yes, we can do that one. For that we have to do alter table. Okay, this you would have learned on that SQL thing which I had shared earlier in the during the initial time of the class, that has all this explanation what exactly the create does and alter does. So you can, once your database is ready, you can run this SQL statements on a database and try to query and see how this object looks. Okay, so we'll come to that once your database is ready. You can try to create that one, and we can see how this data goes and how it looks, right? And here, this part, they are just trying to insert some data in the tables which we created. They just copy paste, and so when you get a query from your developer, it might have just this kind of insert statements, create table statements, all of those in the query, which will dump that data in the database. All right, let's pause here and join back again. I will stop the session and start again.